Alright, today we're going to talk about laying out and cutting mandrel U-bends. And this is the way that I do it. Not everybody does it the same way. Now what I do is I take a zip tie, and normally it's not very often that you would use either a 90 straight up where you go 90 and 90, but it's very hard to cut it. And I know some guys, they'll stick it into their chop saw, but what I do is I'll normally take my zip tie like this, and you just have to put it on a little bit, check out, make sure that this is very close to being 90, and then just take and mark it with a Sharpie. Now, I like building exhaust out of mandrel bent tubing because you can buy the tubes, they're fairly inexpensive, and if you ever go to an exhaust shop and see the crush bends that they do, they're just absolutely horrific. Now you can see when I made my mark that wasn't exactly 90, so I'm just going to move my mark over just a bit. We'll get it as close to 90 as we can. So the crush bends, typically they will choke off your exhaust and you won't get as good a performance out of it. Plus with these, you can buy them where they're very tight bends, where they're almost touching here. So what I like to do is I like to use a tubing cutter on these, or pipe cutter, and the reason why I like to do that is it leaves these nice finished ends like this. This is how that would leave it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this at 90, I'm going to cut a section out, and we're going to flip it around and use these clamps to hold it together. Now, one of the other reasons why I like the tube bender is when it goes in between these shoes here, you put it in and you give it just a little bit, and now it's self-centered. Now you're going to get a very straight cut off of this. And every pass that you make, you turn it in. Just a little bit of a turn. And now, we're through this piece. So back it off and take it apart. You can see just by eye how close I got these pieces. So now, if we're gonna, say, put it together like this, and I have actually had situations like this where on my green fleet line that you'll see on my channel, the park brake was almost directly below the split exhaust manifold. So what I did is I made a jog in it just like this coming out, because the park brake assembly sat, say, right here, and it gave me enough room that on the bottom I could put another 90 going out. So this is one of the other reasons why you want to use these types of bends, is because with a crush bender you would never get a bend that's this straight or this nice. Okay, now we're just doing this purely by example. So I've cut this little piece out, that's about 60 degrees, and I left another, I would say that's probably 30 degrees on there. So that came off of here. So if I needed to, I could turn that, and I could come up into here like this. And this is what I was saying earlier, that if you were building a very nice exhaust for a car, you would never be able to get bends this tight with a crush bender. So I'm going to take and clamp these up into a certain way that we would be able to lay them out for welding. So for example, if you wanted to go into a set of lake pipes, now you're coming off of your head pipes into the exhaust, you can lay this out just like this. And see how nice and neat and tidy that is? So say we're coming down like this, we're coming off the engine and back around. This would probably be more like this. But you can adjust this any way you need. Now it would probably be more like this. Now, when I did my fleet line, I had functional pipes on it, And I ended up going with another Mandrel U-bend. I came out of the pipes, into the muffler, and then back into the lake pipes like that. And I would have never been able to do that with a crush bender without this being absolutely pinched right off. And the reason why, they put these into a bender and they run a die in it that's basically got balls on it that maintains the shape of it. Okay, now you can see that I've got this demonstration piece mocked up. These are 2-inch exhaust clamps, exhaust jig clamps from Ice Engine Works. They work absolutely great. You don't necessarily have to use them though. I have these kind of to save some time, but if you got a hose clamp on each end and a little piece of wire, you could do the same. Or in the past, what I used to do is I used to take a piece of tape and wrap it around it, and I'd make some marks where I wanted my piece to be. And then when I put my tape, I would peel off where I had my line and I would put a tack there. And then I would keep peeling the tape as I went. But the problem with that is it can contaminate your weld. Not too worried about it if I'm just making a mild steel exhaust like this one. But we'll go ahead, we'll put some tacks on, we'll show you how well this works. These gaps are fairly tight. Now the clamps, what I normally do is where the gap's the tightest, I'll put my tack weld there, I'll remove the clamps, and then I'll set it back where it's supposed to be, because I know with that cutter that this is going to be a dead straight line and it should line up no matter where I put it. When doing this, I just want to tack it with the MIG in a few spots, and then once I'm done, I'll take and I'll TIG weld the rest of it all up. Now, one of the important things that we need to do when we're welding is we need to make sure that our wire is the right length, and we also need to make sure that when you get that ball on the end, that you get rid of that ball. So I've got my welder up pretty high because I want to make sure I get good penetration, but I also have my wire speed turned up quite a bit. So I'm going to put a tack here, and I'm going to put a tack here so that I can remove the clamps. There, and that should be good enough for us to remove the clamps and put more tack welds on. Now we've got our piece all tacked up, wet and cleaned it off. All this is 120 grit that's in here. This is pretty well ready for TIG welding. So you can see, if I put it like this, how it makes a slight jog this way, and then it kind of comes back this way. So this would be good if, say, you're trying to get around a starter, or you had a frame rail you needed to get around. So now this is all ready to TIG weld. This is normally how I do exhaust. Now, it's time consuming, and you can put it all in pieces, and I usually try to do it in pieces that I can remove very easily. And you can still make slip flanges that go over here and use clamps or whatever you need to do. Or say you're making a set of headers for a big block and you're using 2-inch primary tubes, and that'd be a pretty badass big block. But now you've got room to get your plugs in here or whatever you need to do. So a lot of the builder's kits for headers or hot rod style exhaust, they just come with a bunch of straight pieces and Mandrel U-bends, and they're fairly inexpensive. You can get this stuff in stainless steel. I like it. I think it works really good. If you want to do it a different way, that's fine, but this is just the way that I do it. So I hope you learned something and you can take something away from this video. Remember, like, subscribe, and comment. I always try to get back to the comments and talk to people. I really like talking to people and explaining into further detail on what's going on. I'll catch you on the next one.